Okay, troops, so who is better trained? The British SAS, Special Air Service, or the US Navy SEALs? Let's find out on this one, guys. Please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it.
To compare SAS versus Navy SEALs training and selection, we first need to know little more about both units. Both British SAS and American Navy SEALs are considered as the elite special operations forces with similar roles. The special forces of both nations are extremely well-trained, highly disciplined, elite soldiers.
Yeah, it goes without saying, guys, this is the cream of the crop, not just in the military, but as far as countries are concerned, the United States, Great Britain, we're at the forefront of military. We do lead the way in terms of how we handle ourselves on the battlefield. So not just at the forefront of soldiering, but at the forefront of soldiering throughout the whole world.
Get that way in pretty much the same way, by starting with oodles of motivation and dedication, and then piling on never-ending training, with a side order of training right after they get done training. But, to compare SAS versus Navy SEALs and their trainings, first we need to examine few factors. The Navy SEALs are the primary special operations force of the United States Navy. They are a component of the Naval Special Warfare Command trained to conduct small unit special operations missions in all environments. It means that they are able to operate in maritime, jungle, urban, Arctic, mountainous, and desert environments.
Right, so that's an extremely specialized individual. Throughout the world, we have specialized military groups, special forces who can operate pretty good in these environments if they're trained in it. But from what I'm gathering, the US Navy SEAL is pretty much, you expect to be trained in these environments. You will be operating in pretty much all of them if need be. So it's not a case of being specialized and then not really doing it. These guys can operate pretty much anywhere, and they're task focused as well. All right, they're very much on target. And they're designed to take out the enemy, and they are the last call, so to speak. I know you've got the Green Berets, who are special forces over there as well, but US Navy SEALs are phenomenal fighting force.
The acronym SEAL stands for the sea, air, and land. SEAL teams are usually sent to kill or capture.
Right, I didn't know that. Sea, air, and land. I actually didn't know that.
High valuable targets, HVTs, or to gather intelligence behind enemy lines. They are amongst the most skilled and effective special operators in the world. The Navy SEALs preferred obscurity through all those years, but in recent years they become increasingly a focus of national interest due to the media attention they have received, and through books and movies as well.
Well, let's face it, you've got your Marcus Luttrell and other very famous individuals from the Navy SEALs who have just came out with the most unimaginable stories over the past 20 years or so. Afghanistan and Iraq have bred these war stories. Okay, how could this entity not be well known to the American and British public and the public around the world as well? They've just been involved in too many hard, horrible things for us not to know about them. Okay, they've been very, very busy over the past 20 years, probably, arguably, the most busy they've ever been, apart from Vietnam War, of course.
The Special Air Service, SAS, is a special forces unit of the British Army. Being in the Special Air Service is like being in an elite club which you are a member of for a lifetime. Special Air Service is tasked to the highest level and can operate in difficult and often changing circumstances. They may find themselves operating without guidance and in situations that are important operationally and strategically. The British SAS is an opportunity for soldiers to work within a unique independent organization that takes pride in its heritage, role, and professionalism. Service is physically and intellectually challenging, but the rewards are significant.
Yeah, the SAS are, I'm not going to say the cream of the crop, because you've obviously got the Special Boat Service, the Royal Marines Commandos. Used to be a specialisation for us, now it's part of Tier 1 Special Forces Group. and you've got SRR as well, which is the Special Reconnaissance Regiment as well, and other various elements to all of those. Okay, guys. So the one part of it, the Special Air Service, it should really be called Special Land Service, Special Sea Service. They do all kinds of things. Don't be surprised if you see someone from the SAS conducting certain maritime things, and they certainly conduct a lot of things on the land, in the mountains, you name it, guys. These are interoperable individuals capable of being deployed anywhere globally. The SAS part, Special Air Service bit, is a little bit outdated, really. They can capable of operating anywhere in the world.
Ultimately, there may be some chest beating when members of any of those meet in the marketplace, but they will all recognize the hard work it took to achieve the degree. When a SEAL and SAS meet each other, they acknowledge a kindred spirit. Sure, there may be some chest beating and bragging, but they almost always relish the opportunity to work and train together.
Well, that's something that would only come from someone who's in the know. I don't know how much this channel, USA Military Power, knows of the interoperability between these two counterparts, but your Navy SEALs are more likely going to work with the Special Boat Service because of the nature of the maritime element to that. So US Navy SEALs predominantly, most of the time, will work alongside the Special Boat Service, SBS. SES soldiers, I'd imagine, would do a lot more with the Green Berets because they're the same type of, the same type of skill set, so to speak.
They train in different ways and for different things. Better training will always be subjective. Navy SEALs would rather be tied down in a marine environment where they feel most comfortable rather than land, whereas the SAS would prefer to rat it out on land rather than sea.
Again, that's just an assumption, guys, of their skill set. The Navy SEALs might be trained maritime, but it doesn't mean to say they like it. I was, an amphibious soldier in the Royal Marines Commandos. We actually did more stuff on land than I could ever imagine. We hardly did anything at sea, if I'm quite honest with you. So I'd imagine the US Navy SEAL is as comfortable on land as he is ashore. And the same goes with someone from the SAS. They've got boat troops and things like that where they can conduct their operations on a maritime scale if need be. You got to think at this level, the skill set, the hardness of the training, the individual who has the skill and the mental capacity to be able to pass that type of training is going to be able to operate pretty much anywhere, just because they're not amphibious soldiers by default doesn't mean to say that they couldn't conduct themselves in a maritime sense very effectively, because they could. And I think that's the thing that we need to understand with these guys. Okay, and in terms of training, yes, a lot of training is bilateral. It's cross training with different countries and stuff to hone their skills. It's not going to be too much different except the budget involved.
Navy SEALs focus on maritime operations, direct action raids, aka shooting fuckers in the face, and special reconnaissance operations. They excel at all three of these fields. But they also focus extensively on the team, part of SEAL team. Their training, operations, and daily life revolve around the team. Everything is for the team, for the unit. It's their way of life. Preparation consists of more than 12 months of initial training that includes basic underwater demolition, SEAL, parachute jump school and SEAL qualification training, SQT, followed by an additional 18 months of pre-deployment training and intensive specialized training. Each year, about 1,000 candidates make it to SEAL training. About 250 complete their training and join approximately 2,000 more active SEALs, who work among 9 active duty teams, East and West Coast. Some SEAL candidates choose to drop out of the program, and some are forced out in progress.
Yeah, it's a very tough selection process. Very, very tough indeed. But I do believe you can do it from being a civilian. Correct me if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I do think you can join as a civilian and pretty much try to become a SEAL if you want, which, I think it has its pros and cons. The obvious cons involved are the fact that you haven't got military experience,
British SAS focus on a lot of the same things, minus the maritime operations. A better comparison would be between the SEALs and the Special Boat Service, SBS.
That's what I said.
But when comparing these two, it's apples and oranges. SAS does more hostage rescue or CT operations than the SEALs do, unless you count a Special SEALs Department dev group. In order to thin out the herd, the SAS holds one of the most arduous and rigorous selection and training programs in the modern special operations community.
In my humble opinion, and I'm not just saying this, I understand a lot about the American military and everything. In my personal opinion, not just the SAS, but I'm talking about Special Forces selection holistically from the British military. I genuinely believe it is the hardest Special Forces training on the planet. Just the fact that you've got everyone who wants to join regular Special Forces selection has to have already served in a military sense, ideally in an infantry role, in more ideally in a role more specifically the Royal Marines or Parachute Regiment. Those are the main roles that fill UK Special Forces. There is other regiments that do very well amongst the selection process, but predominantly it comes from the commandos and the paras, and they're very, very hard regiments and units to become a part of anywhere. All right, the Royal Marines Parachute Regiment is bloody hard, guys. It's really, really tough to become part of that. So you've already achieved greatness, and a lot of the guys who then go on to pass Special Forces selection after 3 or 4 years, whether that's the SBS, SRR, or the Special Air Service, a lot of them fail. Good men, all right, with a lot of experience. So in my humble opinion, I generally believe it's one of the hardest, if not the hardest, in the world. And that's just my humble opinion.
Timed cross-country marches, treks through jungles, and a mountain climb are just a few of the challenges that make joining the SAS an extreme task.
Well, that's not
Duration
the
of
SAS.
selection and training.
That looks like the
whole
Australian.
process of SAS training and selections is long, around 32 weeks, 6 months, before the candidates are sent to the regiment as the troopers, where they will go through their basic
That's not British, that's Australian.
training related to their speciality. It may last up to 3 more years to complete all trainings available. British Special Air Service (SAS) selection is reputed to be among the toughest in the world, with an average pass rate of 10% to as low as 3 to 4% in the 90s. In some cases in the late 60s, no one passed SAS selection.
There you go, them numbers speak for themselves. That's definitely
In the
not the
domain
British.
of selection, it's still hard to compare it on the SAS versus Navy SEALs level, because SAS selection process is largely individual based, with long-ass ruck marches and individual events.
The reason it's individual based is simply because you're dealing with already trained soldiers who understand how to operate to a basic level within a fighting unit or fighting battalion or regiment. Most of the time, they know how to fire the weapons. They understand how to, maintain themselves in the field on operations. They understand all of the basics already, and they've done it probably for years at this point. So it's about making those basic skills specialist and honing down on them. And that's why the selection process is based solely on yourself. There's not really that much teamwork early on, simply because they understand that you're a trained soldier already, so they can afford to truly see who you are. There's no room for error because there's no one else there to help you in the team to get through. It's either it's you or you fail. Simple as that. There's only you to blame. So that's why I think it's really tough. You are literally your pass or fail. Simple as that.
The argument could be definitely made that the SEALs work better in the team environment, but I'm not gonna go out and say that.
I would say that under the circumstances in which they're subject to, yes, they're definitely pushed a lot more down the team element, and it's completely based on the team as a standard. But most of these people are civilians, so I think it's important that they get that out the way first. Okay, and this is something that most British soldiers have already been through in their respective units. Granted, probably is not as hard as this, unless it is the Royal Marines or Parachute Regiment, but most others, this is going to be tough, the Navy SEALs. But in terms of the reason we don't do it for Special Forces in Britain is because we've already been through that. You know, we've already been through that kind of process.
And remember, the SAS selection course has a 90% dropout rate compared with a 75% dropout rate for the SEAL course, if that means
75 is still a lot. That's an awful lot.
anything. Navy SEALs, SAS, Spetsnaz, Army Special Forces, Delta Force or any others around the world are extremely professional and lethal organizations. Let me say that word again, professional, so they are not suitable for wrongdoings. Capable and deadly, that's what they have in common. Thanks.
That's U.S. Marines, right? Is that the Marines?
Ready, go, go. Go! To the window. To the window.
Right, I think we're going to start talking a little bit about that. So the question was initially, who is better trained? A British SAS soldier or a US Navy SEAL? I think it's too easy to go down the route of, you know, who is better overall. That's not the question. Who is better trained? A British SAS soldier or a US Navy SEAL? I'm going to have to go at the end of training, and if you complete the training and you are the finished product, I would say a British SAS soldier. And this is my reason why. You've went through one of the longest and hardest special forces trainings on the planet. Fact, we started this whole show of special forces and shared our skills and our theories and our kind of blueprint throughout the whole world. Specifically, the United States took our kind of blueprint on and in some ways made it better for different groups, okay? However, a British SAS soldier has already been through a rigorous training program in the first place. Even the British Army, the regular regiments out there, it's pretty tough, okay? It's one of the hardest on the planet still. Most people who get into the SAS are from the Parachute Regiment or the Royal Marines. Fact, that is a bloody hard course to do anywhere. So you've already went through, if you're in the Royal Marines, 32 weeks of the longest, hardest basic infantry course on the planet. To then go into Special Forces and then do their training regime, I think that, you know, I think that says it all, guys. And that's not to say they're better. I'm not saying they're better at all. I think it's a real good effort that you can go from civilian to Navy SEAL. And if you do get through that training program, one of the hardest on the planet, you're a pretty tough guy. But I think the key to this is the US Navy SEALs have that ability through manpower, through budget, through having other powerful organizations in place to be able to do loads of continuation training with you, okay? And you've got the money to do so. So who is better trained? I think simply the British SAS soldier has to be, for me, hands down. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments, guys. I'm always up for a debate. And yeah, that's just my opinion, troops. Prove me wrong.